Got a little Mormon truth intel here on the Equinox. Going to have to bring it straight from the editing software as there was just too much data to process this. So we're just going to screen capture it, plane it in this format. So my apologies for the somewhat imperfect border there. And there will be a couple of minutes where it gets a little bit staticky and then that goes away. Just in something I had to insert though. So today's video live from somewhere nearer some of you than you think.
Hey Dodger Dave, what are you up to?
Hey, I was just working on a little research, getting ready for a video here. A couple of them. Yeah. Mormon Doctrine by Bruce McConkie. This is the old version, by the way. You want to see a couple of books I got in my library?
Sure.
And maybe I'll tell you two videos I'm about to make right now.
Okay.
Alright, let me shut off this Kid Rock straight out the trailer stuff, alright? Go on in the trailer. Give you a little tour, would you like that?
Sure.
Alrighty. You want to check out my mermaid here? Yeah, here, let's light her up.
Very nice.
Uh-oh. Can you see her?
Uh-huh.
She's got some seer stones here, some crystal balls.
Yeah.
Pretty red, huh? Alright, let's put this Trader Joe's sparkling water aside. Yeah, okay, so here we got some of the important materials we have here. The Mormon Doctrine, the old version, that's got a lot of stuff that they wish we didn't have anymore, kind of like the Journal of Discourses. Information that the church would rather we not discuss because doctrines have changed as Jesus changes his mind. This is a book I particularly enjoy. It's by Manly Palmer Hall. Secret Teachings of All Ages. It'll help you realize where Christianity came out of the mystery religions. Here, Joseph Smith's new translation of the Bible. Who we got here doing this? Original manuscripts. Edited by, who we got here? I can hardly read it, but Robert J. Matthews is listed last, and he's a pretty prominent name in Mormondom here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you've probably seen this radical crystal here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not some kind of a new ager, but I just had to have this. I mentioned that in a video where I showed some of the temple penalties and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, one that the video I'm going to be doing actually today has to do with the why behind why did Satan's Libtard minion Mike Norton, otherwise known as New Name Noah, why did his handlers have him crucify McKenna Denson? There are reasons for that, because what she was talking about was too close to the heart of what really goes on within Mormonism, the Satanic core, where the Satanic ritual abuse is actually part and parcel of the hierarchy's regimen, not just some rogue individuals that are, horribly disobeying the commandments or something. Anyway, I'm going to be doing one. I'm going to put on my Lucifer shirt. When I say Lucifer shirt, in the pre-1990 temple endowment, Lucifer, which, by the way, the Freemasons worship, but say has nothing to do with Satan. Of course, there's no reference to Lucifer and Satan being the same individual in the Bible. Christians, that's just Christian mythology. But yeah, I was gonna put this thing on, and I know I gotta lose about 13.33 pounds just to use some nice magic numbers. And yeah, so I thought I'd probably go through some of the I might actually just, take a look at some of the script of the pre-1990, although I've been through it. Look at this here. So it's like, Lucifer, what hast thou been doing? And he's like, I have been giving some of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil to them, and discuss some of the things that were taken out of that particular, that rendition of the temple endowment. A lot of people, especially Christians, were upset because a Protestant minister was represented to be in the employ of Satan, and now the church tries to disown that kind of thing. However, the fact remains that 1 Nephi chapter 14 states clearly that all the other churches are part of the great and abominable church of the devil, which, of course, we've heard many times was the Roman Catholic Church. I could turn on the AC here.
Okay.
We're going to be pretty quick with this. If you've wondered what this is very important to me. This is a ball I bought at the store because of these really cool colors. They're just, yeah. Oh, it was like 2 a.m. Okay. Here, this bad religion sticker on one of my guitars really helps share how I feel about the Jesus mythology created by the Roman hierarchy, the Roman elite, the Flavian family in those Gospels, and of course my Pink Floyd strap on this Gibson Epiphone kind of New Age Illuminati look. Speaking of New Age look, how about some new rum? The new rum, yeah. I'm not a drinker of rum, but I use this to as a gargle actually. Yeah, seriously, I put this out here for effect today. When I had that tooth infection, that was one of the things that helped cure me. I don't recommend. It's for the washing of our bodies according to the word of wisdom. And Joseph Smith was close on that one because he copied a lot of things, and then he just put a twist on them. Just like Christianity copied a lot of things, but Christians complained, saying, "Oh, well, that's different from the Roman, not the Roman, but the Egyptian Trinity." Sure, there are different twists put on things, but like the Cochranites, wife swapping. That we'll probably mention. I'm going to mention 3 videos by what's her name? Emerging Photon, that focused on this controlled opposition, as we call it, in specifically in Mormonism, but it's everywhere. Because Mormonism is just it's an important cog in a much larger wheel, where people are being influenced by mind control techniques on a mass scale. And we're going to take a look at some of the neurolinguistic programming techniques that are used. I do that in a lot of videos, at least on a small scale. And Emerging Photon worked on, or showed, a lot of data concerning, she some important things having to do with New Name Noah and his, criminal activities when he was in the bail bonds business for heinously breaking the law in how he mistreated an individual in particular, which there was a financial remedy in the contract. Instead, he brutalized him, and the way he basically has brutalized McKenna Denson. Is it Denson or Denison? In trying to discredit her. And she shows basically a wave of people in the anti-Mormonism movement coming out to discredit McKenna Denson, and I feel that she's really not necessarily responsible for all of the acts that they're using to discredit her. Personally, if she's got altars, and I think that Emerging Photon is really on target, as she notes. The probability of her being a victim of the MK Ultra program. So I'm going to insert in here now just a couple of excerpts from videos done by Emerging Photon in which she's captured some of the things that Mike
Mike Norton, new name Noah, has said and placed some of her analysis on it. She's an attorney, and of course, some of this is psychological, consideration. But let's actually think about what he's saying and how he's treating someone that even he says actually needs some kind of help psychologically, probably because of great amounts of trauma that she has suffered. But Mike shows us what real men do when they're dealing with women that have got psychological problems due to trauma.
Call me right now, like clockwork.
Yellow.
Hey, I won't keep you long. I know you're busy. So I talked to my therapist this morning, and she said it's very likely that I had a fake cancer fundraiser. And I asked her why. I don't remember it. And she's not sure. She said maybe it's a DID episode.
Now, when McKenna mentions DID, she's talking about dissociative identity disorder, which is psychological terminology that is used to explain multiple personalities or dissociated personalities, alters that could be created in the case of MK Ultra trauma-based mind control. So let's see how compassionate Mike is. I'm going to filter out his F-bombs for our viewer audience this time, trying to make this something that everybody can listen to. Well, he is going to say the SH word.
I think you are a fucking monster, and I am going to expose you to everybody for the monster you are, and by the time I'm done, you will be lucky if your own attorney is still on your side. You are so completely full of shit, and honest to God, if you were standing here in front of me, let me tell you, I've never hit a woman in my life, but I would break your fucking nose. You are a worthless piece of shit, McKenna. You faked cancer multiple times and took money from people to help you pay for your cancer. Do you think those people are going to be less likely to donate money to people in the future that have cancer? I think so. You are literally taking money out of the pockets of children with cancer. You...
Seriously? One woman who didn't immediately announce that she didn't seem to have cancer when perhaps she thought she did, and perhaps an altar that had been created through trauma-based mind control had caused, that's going to really affect people donating to the American Cancer Society or something, as if they're really interested in finding cures for cancer. We know that the FDA and other agencies in the United States, as well as pharmaceutical companies, have done plenty to fund the suppression of actual cancer cures. If you want to be cured of cancer, you probably need to leave the United States to do treatments that are illegal, because they work. Maybe that's why my uncle died. Maybe it wasn't suicide. He was one of the foremost cancer researchers in the United States, and suddenly, he committed suicide. Sure, he was upset. His wife wasn't a nice person, but there are lots and lots of so-called suicides that really aren't suicide at all. But we're not going to get deep into that right now. Let's continue and hear Mike and his vitriolic rage sounds super logical.
Accuse at least 5 men of raping you. One of those poor sons of bitches sat in jail for months and faced prosecution, and thank God he was found not guilty.
Later on, McKenna still asserts that this guy should have been prosecuted. Just because someone gets off, like the guy who had raped at least 5 other girls and had the San Diego DA, I believe they were all in San Diego. They may not have all been in San Diego. Some could have been elsewhere. Let him off because they didn't think they could win, or because he had the right connections. Who also raped someone very close to me and got off with it. I spoke with that deputy DA at least once, and yeah, She knew he was guilty, but there were some issues, and she could risk for her political career losing in court. So she didn't bother to prosecute him because she wanted a 100% victory record for herself. So, sorry, Mike, that doesn't mean that this guy or others hadn't terrorized or raped McKenna. So, and Emerging Photon's video on this really shows patterns that happen in terms of targeted individuals, and also just the fact that girls that have had this sort of thing happen, the type of abuse that she suffered, and that many suffer, and especially people that have been in the MK program, if she was, are just coincidentally or non-coincidentally attracting, or for some reason winding up in the crosshairs of predators. So just because bad things happen to people doesn't mean that you can say, oh, they're nuts, and let's just discredit everything they said. Once again, Joseph Bishop confessed on tape, okay? That's not McKenna, that's him confessing. So you're going to discredit that? And when Mike is saying, well, I'm cooperating with, what was it, David Jordan, whatever his name was. Yeah, that's an LDS, that's a lawyer for the LDS Church who, of course, wants to smear McKenna and discredit her and or anyone else that is bringing to light the crimes of these priesthood predators of women.
You are a fucking monster. I can't wait to see you go down in a ball of flames. Your book will never happen. Your movie will never happen. Your lawsuit against Joseph Bishop, FYI, newsflash for you, you piece of shit. I've been cooperating with David Jordan. I've recorded every single conversation you and I have had for weeks, and I'm gonna burn you at the fucking stake. You hear?
Thanks, Mike, for showing us how to re-traumatize a traumatized woman. And she hadn't even talked trash about Mike like she did when I approached her about doing an interview on Facebook. And like I said, I think she just felt threatened by the prospect of talking to me because perhaps she had been instructed not to do so. So, he had like no provocation at all. And I, of course, if you'll listen to the tape that I did having to do with my conversation with McKenna, well, you can see that I wasn't going off on her like that at all. Whereas Mike somehow feels the need to bully McKenna, and once again, repeating the motivation of the LDS Church, she got way too close to the ritualistic, satanic operations of the brethren. They're not comfortable with that, and the controlled opposition is helping to discredit those who let us know that Glenn Pace in his leaked memo was only the tip of the iceberg in the satanic ritual abuse and the Satanism practiced at the highest levels of the church, though he pretended it was just rogue individuals who got as high as patriarch.
You are a lying, pathological piece of shit, in my opinion. I want nothing to do with you, ever. And let me tell you something. You know where I live. Show up at my house and you get a fucking bullet between your eyes. I will assume that if you show up at my house, you are here to cause trouble. Nobody in their right mind. What, McKenna? Go ahead. Give me your excuses. Go ahead. Let me hear it. You're not going to con your way out of this one, McKenna. Go ahead.
I have nothing to say.
Good. You shouldn't say anything other than I choose to plead the fifth, officer. FYI, I've talked to the Pueblo Police Department and given them all this information. David Jordan has all this information. Good luck with your lawsuit, McKenna, because I will be there to testify against you if I need to be. You are the worst human being I have ever met. And I have met people who have thrown toddlers down flights of stairs.
Okay, so now McKenna, admittedly with
dissociative identity disorder or some trauma-based problems is worse than people that throw toddlers downstairs, so Mike's fully justified in helping dishonest LDS lawyers smear her, even though, she had the confession of LDS Mission President Joseph Bishop about his sexual assault of her. Sure, let's also remember, Mike, not only did Mike say he wanted to break her effing nose, but he said if she came near his house, that he would shoot her between the eyes, or shoot her in the face with a gun, basically. Yeah, he's all there, that's for sure. Now, conveniently, Mike has edited this video so that we don't have it available from his channel with him stating that he'd shoot her in the face or between the eyes anymore. Maybe someone pointed out to him how extremely stupid it was for him to reveal how vitriolic and abusive he actually is of women. Well, at any rate, I will include information from 3 of Emerging Photons videos relevant to this subject in a more complete version of what we're talking about here, showing Mike Norton as part of an organized agenda, in my opinion, and in the opinion, obviously, of Emerging Photon and probably many others. So the 3 videos we're talking about here that Emerging Photon did that I'll be pulling from would be Mormon Monsters and the Education of McKenna Denson, New Name No versus McKenna Denson, and some about sexual predation to middle-aged white guys. So check them out. So I think it's important that people keep an open mind as they view a lot of everything, but a lot of the videos that I do, because if you have a different perspective, if your conditioning or programming causes you to want to, hey, let's not listen to this. This conflicts with the belief system I have, and so this information is conflicting. It's causing cognitive dissonance, and we've been programmed. We've been programmed to shut out information which conflicts with what we've been programmed with. And that's not just a Mormon thing. It's not just an RCC thing. It's not just a JW or an SDA thing. That's done in our universities, where people are being programmed with Darwinism or something of that matter, and in the media where you've been conditioned to react in a certain way when you hear the term conspiracy theory. All of these things are done so that you will shut your mind and not consider what someone has to say, and so that, as you can see, that what Mike Norton and some of these others have done, and she shows John Dillon and so forth, where they're, working on their B-acting skills, faking emotion, with the coming out of a 12-year-old and some of the legal issues with that, and that should be a problem for someone who's a psychologist to be promoting or exploiting a young person like that. And she talks about that, but she talks about targeting and how that is used to make people look like, hey, there's something wrong with this person. And if there is anything, no, I'm not trying to flash sixes. If there is something wrong with someone, if someone can be discredited in any way, which Mike Norton tries to do to McKenna Denson, and he is just vitriolic and absolutely insane. He says he wants to shoot her in the face. Actually, he says he will. He took down that version of the video, I think, and edited it out, but fortunately someone had reposted it, and we've got that. Just like I think they took down the video where he's discrediting himself, talking with Tanner of Zelf on the Shelf about outrageous things he's done, and he's talking about wanking in the Logan Temple while he had a temple recommend, not just because he was trying to be covert, but he actually was a believing Mormon. And so I say, what kind of credibility does somebody have who really said, hey, I'm a believing Mormon right now, and he apparently was, and yet he's, doing that sort of thing, which he would have to lie about in the Temple Recommend interview, obviously. It's a breaking of the law of chastity. So what they try to do is discredit people by saying, oh, you've done something that's dishonest, something that's wrong. Therefore, everything that you say must be, false or something that we can discredit. And you know what? That's a principle, that's a technique that's used by people who understand manipulation to discredit people. So they're just like the LDS lawyers are trying to attack the reputation of McKenna Denson, so that people who are conditioned by these sorts of techniques will just, throw away all sorts of things, including the testimony, the admission, the confession of Joseph Bishop to what went on in that secret subterranean room underneath the MTC, and subterranean sacrifice and satanic ritual abuse and all sorts of stuff of that ilk is part of the satanic religion that the leaders of the LDS Church, I'm sure, practice as Luciferians that they are, and as the Luciferian Freemasons that tend to lead all of these religions. And I'm not just talking about the cults, like the ones that the Christians call cults. Christianity is a cult, and I mean, look it up in Wikipedia. You can just see what the definition of a cult is. And just because they can find Jerusalem on the map, it doesn't mean that the stories in there are true. But these are techniques that are used to validate, and this all goes under the, it's under all truth is circumscribed in one great whole. That's something you learn in the LDS Temple, but that's something they got from Luciferianism. That's something that Albert Pike talks about. And instead of calling the gospel, he calls that the science of magic. That all truth is circumscribed into one great whole, basically into the science of magic. And from those principles, we get things like that. So, those are some of the videos that I'm working on, and maybe I'll blend this into that one that we're talking about. Yeah, you like the Lucifer's Pizza over there. That's from Hollywood. There's 3 Lucifer's Pizza, and I've had one really great vegan pizza from them, and then with all kinds of fresh stuff, and one that just tasted not near. The big one wasn't as good as the little one, but it's great because I keep some of my own, this is a little bit of a get-to-know Dodger. I keep a couple of pictures from Central America in here that I really like. This is my favorite. See? A couple of toucans. So, yeah. This is a kind of a temporary abode, of course. But I like to hang this kind of stuff up, It's feel-good stuff. And I realize I kind of freak people out with some of the bling I use, or the magic rocks and seer stones and all that stuff that I've used in some of those videos, or the Lucifer's Pizza, or all this stuff. But we've been programmed to believe that everything that is good, and the Book of Mormon specifically uses this 19th century Christian vernacular, everything good comes from Christ, and everything evil comes from the devil. Who's the devil? Well, it's a Christian, a Christian adaptation of other religions that, quite frankly, some of them predate. We have civilizations that predate the timeline given in the Jewish mythology that we've got in the Old Testament, which was adapted into a Bible that we call it, meaning library. Of books that the Roman hierarchy put together after the Roman hierarchy invented the Jesus story. Christianity had nothing to do with this figure of a man called Jesus, but that's something that we'll get into later. That's something more people can discover better listening to Santos Benacci, for instance, or the lack of historicity of this Jesus figure by Dr. Richard Carrier, for instance. He is very good on Roman history. The guy never existed. And if he did, if there was a man named Jesus, a Hebrew being named Jesus, which is insane, because it's a Greek name which represents the Gentiles, which no devout Jew I can think of would name their child. So the Christians like to try to augment, their argument and say, oh, his name was Yeshua or Yehoshua. Yehoshua, I guess that, so using Aramaic, I suppose, right? Or Joshua in Hebrew. They're trying to act like, oh, well, we just, use the lingua franca and put it in Greek because the New Testament was written in Greek. But Jesus Christ, that there's nobody named their kid Christ. That's a title. And like I said, I'm not going to get into the theology of that stuff. Another great source for looking at the historicity or complete lack of it, a guy who's a good speaker on this would be Aaron Ra. Aaron Ra. He goes by Aaron Ra, but he also was LDS, like me, like Madeline, who does the Galactic Storyteller channel, and if that sounds too new age for people, like I said, keep an open mind. Look at the facts. This girl's brilliant, and I've done a couple, 2-3 interviews with her. I think a couple, one on my channel and one on hers. She's got all kinds of great information on a lot of these issues that relate to how we have been deceived in a large scale plan, and how esoteric truth is hidden from us. So we get these exoteric versions of sheeple control religion. Alongside, I'm going to mention some anti-Mormon people that are actually not in part of the controlled opposition, the Pied Pipers for the elite. We could Travis Wayne Goodsell, I think, is doing a great job. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, he's got some really good information.
He's got some good stuff, Emerging Photon and Minion. I don't know, is there anybody else that's not basically catering to the politically correct stuff or going to the, hey, Jesus is real bullshit?
I can't think of anybody.
Yeah.
There's only a few channels.
And I think all of our channels tend to be shadow banned. You see new people pop up and boom, they got all these subscriptions. Or you got people where it looks like, wow, there's some kind of promotion going on, like Jimmy Snow with the Mr. Atheist thing. I mean, he makes good videos, but
of the LDS IRA.
He's got me like over 200 to 1 on subscriptions. And he started like 3-4 weeks after I did. Is he that much better than me? Probably not. I mean, I've seen some of these new girls come up and, like 3 months, they're like, oh, they got more subscriptions than me. And maybe they're doing a good job. Maybe they're really cute. But even when I started the new channel, the Mormon Truth videos, it started to, take off a little bit. And all of a sudden, whack! It's like, okay, we just put a 90%, glass ceiling on this. Of everything was, and everything just suddenly were the views, So... that's why that kind of stuff happens. That's why people like John Dillon go completely silent when I started talking with them on Facebook. That's why maybe, I hate to say anything bad about Zelf on the Shelf. I really like their videos. We watched some the other night. They're good, and some of them are really funny. A lot of good information, yet when Kwaku comes out against them, their rebuttal, they should have gone on the offensive, in my opinion. They've never responded, other than giving me a heart once for a comment. They go silent. In the same video, they're talking, in the comments with, what's his name, Mormon Informant, like, yak, 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 Hey, let's, people say, hey, let's go get loaded together. They're like, sure. I mean, they talk with everybody, but they don't talk with me. And it's like, McKenna Denson, I made that video when she refused to talk with me on Facebook. I think it looked like someone had threatened or instructed her not to. She had no reason not to. I don't know, hey, we're on the same side, girl. But she was afraid to talk with me. She went silent. I mean, none of these people, whether Mormon Informant himself, won't respond to me about anything, or he didn't. I stopped bothering, and I did tons of videos, with reference to the 50 problems with the Mormon Church thing that he did that's got like a gazillion views. Only thing he ever sent me was just one thing that says, hey, credit Jeremy for most of the material or something. Author of the CES letter. So Flackerman wouldn't talk to me. Can you think of anybody else that I've like tried to communicate with and they just go silent? They won't talk to me.
Did you say John Dehlin already?
Yeah, I said, well, I talked. I was on Facebook, and he's like, "Oh yeah, what's your story?" And I said, "Well, here's what I am." And he's like, "Silence." He never responded again. And Emerging Photon came out and showed, how phony those guys were with their acting. And I've featured a little bit about John Dehlin when he tried to make it sound like anybody who homeschooled had concerns about, just arbitrarily giving your child all vaccinations without actually looking into benefits versus risks, any kind of non-Western medicine. They were all just quacks and kooks because some girl that he interviewed had parents that did that, and they were like off the hook, or portrayed to be, as far as how they seem to be like pretty culted out, but. Okay, that means it was generalized into, anybody into homeschooling, home birth, natural medicine, they're all just weirdos. What we need to do is follow the religion of conforming to authority. That's what Mormons are taught, and that's what the vast majority of the ex-Mormon community tends to believe with regard to those subjects, I believe, and vaccinations and all that kind of stuff. Oh, all you truthers, you're just off the right-wing radical. They all follow Alex Jones, and he's just a disinformation idiot anyway. And so he's not an idiot, but he's if you're sponsored by Clear Channel at any time, that tells me something. So I think I'll just this will just have to be its own video rather than an intro into that one that we're discussing, because it's been a little bit longer. I wanted to discuss some of the techniques that are used to keep us within the bounds of the belief systems that the elites want us in. And yes, people that are into the truther movement more will understand what I'm talking about. Many of my viewers or people that view this video might just say, wow, that doesn't, our preacher told us that's weird, that, Bill O'Reilly, well, I guess they got rid of him. I used to say, hey, I've seen that guy in my mind in red and black robes. You can tell, there's so many of these people. I mean, how do you get to be a major news anchor if you're not in the network, right? But of course, that's just crazy conspiracy theory until you actually do the research, which they're trying to frighten you from doing, whether it pertains just to Mormonism and the history of Mormonism, and comparing the facts with the LDS Truth and Authority claims, or figuring out whether or not the United States of America is what you've been told it is, rather than a group of privately owned municipal corporations underneath a master one, which is every bit as privately owned as it was before it was renamed from the Virginia Company. Anything else you think I ought to talk about on this one?
I can't think of anything for this one.
Alrighty. I better lose 13.3 pounds before I do that video with this shirt on. I don't want to look, Alright, here come the porn shoulders. Watch out.
Woo!
Screw the Illuminati. I'm out.